An island named Diofield. Long known as the home of the gods, the island has basked in nothing but peace for centuries. While sojourning in Leicestershire at the Leicester residence, the fourth-born prince, Levantia Shatham, comes under attack. Amidst the chaos, Andreas and Frederick hurry to his aid, and under their courageous protection, he escapes the manor. However, they are ambushed, and Levantia is felled by an assassin's hand. Levantia's now limp hand bears the mark of the blessed, proof of his rightful claim to kingship.
Well, hello everyone. Ogre27 Kane here, and this week we're doing a review of the Diofield Chronicle for Nintendo Switch. Let's do an overview and figure out what this game is all about. Well, first up, this is a revisiting of my very first video. This was a game that I had just received around the time that I started my channel, and my very first video was a thoughts and impressions on the game. After having played the game almost all the way through, having my save file deleted, and playing the game almost all the way through again, I decided it's finally time to start talking about this game. It's a real-time strategy, so let's get into the gameplay first. So the gameplay in this is a bit of an RTS real-time strategy with some turn-based elements. It's a bit of a hybrid. If you're familiar with Ogre Battle March of the Black Queen or Ogre Battle Person of Lordly Caliber, then you'll be familiar with this gameplay style. Now, it doesn't have as many units or as much going on as those kind of games. This is a more story-driven game in that sense, but it has almost the same mechanics, and it allows you to use almost the same sort of set of abilities and strategies at your disposal. Well, the general gameplay loop in this sees you at your fort or encampment, where you get your mission or discuss your mission with your superior. Then you go on the mission itself, in which case you achieve your objectives, and then you can get money, loot, and several different forms of currency. You can then return to your encampment and upgrade your weapons and items and armor, and get new story quests and side quests, and go out and do another mission. It's kind of a rinse and repeat formula meant to progress the story. Speaking of which, let's move on to the next category, the story. Well, the story in this game takes place on an island that is divided up by a bunch of little kingdoms that are all vying for their own little portion and control. There's a resource known as Jade that everybody is after, and is the source essentially of magic. Well, as the story progresses and things happen, two large empires from a large continent off to the east decide that they're interested in the jade this island has. So they decide to invade. All of a sudden, all these little civil wars go to the wayside, and everybody concentrates their efforts on stopping these empires. Now, these empires secure their footholds and begin to move onto the island. This game takes place over a large period of time, several decades if I'm not incorrect, and it sees the foothold of this empire grow and shrink and how the people react to it. It's very much like the Ogre Battle series, where it's set up with a series of events that occur and not just one large event. Now, the story does start out with you essentially being a knight or adjutant of a crowned heir of one of these kingdoms, but it doesn't really play into the story until much later in the game. You essentially, as a mercenary unit, are just trying to survive in this new world and keep everything at bay. It's kind of a really interesting take on the story, and it allows you to develop your characters and their relationships before you get into the meat of the problems with the world. So, let's go on to the next category, the graphics and the animations now. Well, the graphics and animations in this game are pretty good for what they're trying to do. Considering you can zoom all the way in and all the way out on the battlefield as things are happening, there's a level of detail when you're all the way zoomed in that's just not there. As well as when you're zoomed all the way out, there's little bits of pop-in and things that occur that kind of bother you. All these things aside, they did not bother me, and the game looked like it was developed for the Switch. Considering this game is on every other system, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, it probably looks a lot better on them. But I don't really see the level of detail going up too much because this was definitely a lower budget game and almost an experiment, in my opinion, in what they were trying to do. If we're lucky enough to get a sequel, we may see some drastic improvements in the ability to take advantage of that high-end hardware. But right now, it's pretty much well suited for the Switch and what it does. The last thing I want to mention is that I love the cutscenes in this game. They really remind me of PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 era cutscenes. And there's a lot of artistic detail that was put into them. So if you enjoy that callback, I recommend just watching a video of those alone. So let's move on to the next category, the controls and audio. One thing I want to highlight on the controls on this is that they're very well done for an RTS and a console-like game. Having the ability to switch between units with the bumper buttons and have a button that you can highlight over a group of units is super helpful. I really like the control scheme, and it yields itself to allowing you to have more units. It's really disappointing that there are not more units you can control, only 4 at a time. Let's talk about the audio. Well, there's not a lot I want to talk about on the audio. I really just want to show you the majority of what it is. This game has some really good voice acting and some really good high quality music. It's one of the finer points to this game, and I really enjoyed both aspects. I think you should check out the whole game to really get the experience, but for what they were trying to achieve, it really does well. So here's a little piece.
I am afraid that talks with the Roadtail Alliance have broken down. The terms they proposed were simply unacceptable. True shame.
And these terms were?
They demanded exclusive jade extraction rights from the Gaian mines for 50 years, no less. A preposterous request.
If I might be so very bold, Duke Hendy, this is a predicament of your own making. The Alliance's diplomats lost great face when you summarily rejected their offer.
Given the circumstances, we've no choice but to trust him. If he's a spy, we know what to do.
I have requested military support from the Royal Forces stationed in Southfield.
We must buy some time until they arrive.
Whatever happens, please stay inside, Duke Hendy. We will protect you at all costs.
Let's move on to combat now. Well, the combat is my favorite part of this game, and one of the coolest things about it is the military strategy tactic aspect of this. Now, I will say there's a caveat, and one of the disappointing things about this is that you can only use 4 units at a time. This is really disappointing because anytime you're trying to use a flanking maneuver or an encircling maneuver or anything like that, it always results in you just getting in a group around the enemy and then dodging their abilities. Very few times did I find those tactics actually useful. Most of the time it was a bait and switch maneuver in stringing enemies out and allowing my greater numbers to attack smaller numbers to do most of the damage. It's really disappointing that they did this considering how well this system is built, and I hope if we get a sequel that they really take advantage of this and give us, say, 8, 10, or 12 units, because this game would really excel at that. Now, the last thing I want to mention about the combat is that the abilities themselves are really cool and really useful, and I love how many different ones there are. They are tied to your weapons, though, and you have to develop other weapons to gain new abilities and try other things. You also have summonses, which you may have seen a few of them in this video, which can do a considerable amount of damage or heal you or other really useful things. So there's a lot of different avenues of how to use said combat. I do like the way that this game does give you a ton of flexibility with that and allows you to play it any way you want to. Building your party is half the fun, so let's move on now to the conclusion. Well, in conclusion, this game scratched a very old itch for me. This is the closest thing to any of the Ogre Battle games I've gotten in 25 years. It's really disappointing to say that, but it's the truth. Now, given that, it feels like a half step. It feels unfinished. It really feels like they had so many great ideas and so many good things to do in this game, and they didn't actually go through with all of them. A lot of the characters, like Waltequin and some of the other ones, are extremely interesting and fun and engaging to follow through, and this game would really highly benefit from a sequel. So I hope that this game was successful enough to get that, and I really hope that you decide to check this game out and prove to Square Enix that we do need a sequel. It'd be really awesome to have something like this turn into a series or a lineage. It's been a long time since we've had a good political drama or adult-style RPG in this sense. But all that aside, this game has an extremely fun and unique combat system, a really engaging story, and a lot of things that make me want to continue with this. This game is a must-play for me and a highly recommended game. Go check it out today. I'm sure it's discounted and cheap anywhere you can find it, but don't wait too long because it wasn't printed very much and it won't be around forever. Well, that concludes today's video. Thank you for watching. It was a blast to make. I upload every single Monday. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day. This is Ogre27 Kane, signing out.
It's now or never.
What the? Some creature has burst out the ground!
Ah!